as the country spends each evening watching celebrities in the Australian jungle, we say we wouldn't mind a bit of a campfire here. It's cold, it's December, it's Partners in Crime.
This is Partners in Crime with Adam Croft and Robert Dawes.
Welcome back, Bob.
Baby, it's cold outside.
Certainly is, yes. I am sitting here in shorts and t-shirt, though, so I...
Well, that's because you've got the central heating on at top whack.
Yeah, well, you have to, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been very much enjoying watching the jungle. We might as well get the non-crime stuff out of the way first. We're watching our celebrity Get Me Out of Here. And as we mentioned recently, your niece, Emily, is, at the time of recording, still in the jungle. We are recording this at slightly earlier in the week than usual, so...
Who knows? Who knows? Yes,
hopefully still in there by Friday.
It's an extraordinary show, and people seem to be thoroughly enjoying it, which is great. And Emily's still there and flying the flag.
We hope.
We hope. We hope. We hope.
Come Friday.
I hope so. Anyway. I mean, do you know what? It's been it is reality television shows. I mean, they really do seem to capture the imagination of a lot of people, and these shows are strictly on at the moment. And I'm a Celebrity. You know, they're getting huge numbers of audience, which, you know, I've heard people poo-poo and say, oh, what a waste of time or whatever. But it's fantastic entertainment for an awful lot of people. Obviously, we're involved because we've got a family member who we love and adore who's going through it. But it's great. I'm enjoying it this year tremendously, and everyone seems to be very nice. It's a nice camp. I've heard criticism for that, but I prefer watching this. I mean, they're all supportive. They're all helping each other out. Doesn't mean they're not competitive underneath, but I think they're a fine example to an awful lot of people, and I judge my daughter's and my son's attitude towards this, and there's not a lot in this year's I'm a Celebrity that you'd actually look at and just say, well, look, these people are getting down, they're showing discipline, they're being kind, they're being empathetic to each other, they're having as much fun as you possibly can have under the circumstances.
And that's what it's all about. I prefer watching people being nice to each other than not. So
well, yes, I mean, so anyway, so I'm hoping that she's still there as we go to as we broadcast this. But yes, so there we go. I mean,
fingers crossed.
It's stressful hours, 9 till 10:30 in the Dawes household.
Would you ever do it yourself?
No.
Have you been asked?
No.
That'll be why then.
I have been asked to do a few strange ones or whatever, and I always go, do you know, I'm going to say something now. I as an actor, I mean, I sort of work through my characters, and the same really as a writer, and it's your books, and it's the characters you portray that people either like or hate, or they may not like the way you particularly write them or perform them or whatever, but you are sort of hidden from view a little bit, and that suits me really. I do the work and I put it out there, and if people like it, that's lovely, and if they don't, well, that's life, I guess. So actually going out and just being yourself, I mean, doing this podcast is about as near as I'll get to that. I think you have to keep a little bit of
you want to stay in fiction land. Yes,
and I'm probably a bit old-fashioned like that, although I fully appreciate that it's not the modern way. You know, people are fascinated by famous people. People are fascinated by how they'll react under certain circumstances. But I think if I possibly can, and I may not be able to, I'll try and keep a little bit of mystery about myself for what it's worth.
Well, back onto crime, which we probably should talk about at some point. I've actually managed to get some reading time in. And to show you how rare that reading time is, the book I've been reading is Peter James's most recent Roy Grace book. Not even his most recent book. This is the one that came out in May, which is Dead If You Don't. 14th Roy Grace book. 14. Which opens with a bomb threat at the Amex football stadium in Brighton. Straight into it. All of his usual pace, suspense, wonderful storyline, brilliant characters. So yes, strongly recommend that. Very much enjoying reading that. I've read all of Peter James's books. Always have done. Usually I used to read them all the day they came out when I back in the days where I used to have time. But now, I mean, this one's taken me, 6-7 months to actually get around to even opening the front cover. So I'm still sticking to my guns. I'm still reading every one that comes out, but it just takes me a lot longer now.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, Peter James's Roy Grace annual, as I call it, because there's one a year, and it's a phenomenal series. You know, it really is. And Peter is the consummate crime writer in so many ways. And I am halfway through his Absolute Proof, which is his standalone, which is again a stunning book. But I'm not going to say any more about that because hopefully Peter will come and chat to us about that in the near future.
I've not got around to that one yet. That is on the list. It used to be that I'd read the book so quickly and have to wait a year for another one, and I'd be sending him messages asking him to write quicker, and the tables have turned and I can't even get through reading one.
Well, you won't get him writing much quicker because, again, like so many of the best writers, their research is so in depth. They take their time. They talk to the right people. They really sort of do an awful lot of work before they even start putting, I nearly said pen to paper, finger to QWERTY. And Peter in particular is fanatical about his research and getting things absolutely right. So that's what takes the days, weeks, months, and years.
That and the fact that he's really lazy.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. He's one of the least. I mean, he's got his stage play. Least lazy people I know.
Yes.
He's got his stage play out as well.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, he doesn't adapt, but I mean, he's very much involved in the production of his stage plays, as I know, and so that takes up an awful lot of time. And apart from that, as every successful author will know, there's the promotion, travelling around the world, actually talking to your readers and selling your book. So you know, it's a full old life. In fact, I know a couple of very well known writers who just say that they can actually spend the whole year just selling their books. Getting the time to actually write the next one is the thing that proves the most difficult challenge. So there we are.
What have you been reading then?
Right, well, I've got some fascinating ones this week. First of all, I'm going to kick off with Professor Sue Black. Now, this was a recommendation sent to me from Val McDermid on tweet about Professor Sue Black's new book, which is absolutely fascinating. It's called All That Remains. Sue Black confronts death every day. As Professor of Anatomy and Forensic Anthropology, she focuses on mortal remains in her lab, at burial sites, at scenes of violence, murder, and criminal dismemberment. See, I managed dismemberment, but criminal, I didn't even manage it then.
It's putting them both together,
right.
That's fatal.
I know. Criminal dismemberment. Many might even make much money. There, I should be back at RADA doing my voice exercises. And when investigating mass fatalities due to war, accident or natural disaster in All That Remains, Sue Black reveals the many faces of death she has come to know, using key cases to explore how forensic science has developed and what her work has taught her. Do we expect a book about death to be sad, macabre? Sue's book is neither. There is tragedy, but there is also humour in stories as gripping as the best crime novel. Our own death will remain a great unknown, but as an expert witness from the final frontier, Sue Black is the wisest, most reassuring, most compelling of guides. Well, she certainly is. I know that Val McDermid works very closely with Sue on all her books. So this is out before Christmas. I don't think you can order it now, but you actually can't get it. But keep an eye on it. Pre-order on Kobo if you can. And another wonderful book to put in your bookcase, certainly for people researching and writers researching books and wanting to get facts from the people who really know, and no one knows better than Sue, but also for people interested in the whole procedure of forensics and criminal forensics.
And how, pray tell, would they get that book from Kobo?
Oh, now you've got me. Please do tell.
I probably should, mainly because we're contractually obliged to do so.
Oh, fair enough.
If you head over to kobo.com, find any books we're talking about that tickle your fancy, and if you're a new Kobo customer, as a listener to Partners in Crime, just enter the promo code CRIME at the checkout and they'll give you 90% off. You don't need an e-reader or any device either. You can read on your mobile device or your tablet. There we are.
Oh, right. Dum dum da dum da dum dum dum, as they say in a certain television programme. My next two recommendations. It's coming up to Christmas. It's the time for ghost stories, horror stories, traditional ghost stories, or whatever. And there are two out now, which one is gothic and one is a traditional ghost story with lots of different twists. The first one is by our favourite and wonderful guest on Partners in Crime, Ellie Griffiths, The Stranger Diaries, which is the Times crime book of the year. Claire Cassidy is no stranger to tales of murder. As a literature teacher specialising in the Gothic writer R.M. Holland, she teaches a short course on them every year. Then Claire's life and work collide tragically when one of her colleagues is found dead. A line from an R.M. Holland story is by her body. The investigating police detective is convinced the writer's works somehow hold the key to the case. Not knowing who to trust and afraid that the killer is someone she knows, Claire confides her darkest suspicions and fears about the case to her journal. Then one day she notices some other writing in the diary. Writing that isn't hers. Well,
Did you do the audiobook?
No, I wish. So yes, utterly bewitching, a pitch-perfect modern gothic is A.J. Finn, the author of A Woman in the Window, compelling, intelligent and increasingly mesmerising Mr. Peter James. It's a fantastic book. I am halfway through it. I'm halfway through two books at the moment, but that's the way I read. I don't know about you listeners, but I have 2 or 3 books on the go, and depending where I am in the day, I'll say, oh, I'm going to get into that one, I'm going to dip into that one, or whatever. But it's absolutely terrific. Ellie is just going from, well, not strength from strength. She's been playing with great strength for many years now. But this is a terrific book, a great Christmas read if you want a sort of sense of the old horror lingering over the Christmas, which none of us really do, but we all like a bit of a thrill, don't we? It's where did that all start? That probably was Christmas Carol, The Ghost of Christmas Past.
Yeah.
I suppose that's where that began. Anyway,
Just to stop people having too much fun.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yes, bar humbug. And the next one is a gripping mystery with a classic feel, a cross between And Then There Were None and The Silent Companions. It's A House of Ghosts by W.C. Ryan. Winter 1917. As the First World War enters its most brutal phase, back home in England, everyone is seeking answers to the darkness that has seeped into their lives. At Blackwater Abbey, on an island off the Devon coast, Lord Highmount has arranged a spiritualist gathering to contact his 2 sons who were lost in the conflict. But as his guests begin to arrive, it gradually becomes clear that each has something they would rather keep hidden. Then, when a storm descends on the island, the guests will find themselves trapped. Soon, one of their number will die. I think I need a cup of coffee. I haven't read this yet, but I am going to. It's my next one up. But the reviews have been absolutely fantastic.
I think I'm going to get myself a copy. That does sound like my cup of tea, actually.
Well, Ragnar Jonasson says, perfect for a dark and stormy evening, a truly creepy and ingenious ghost story and murder mystery with an irresistible setting. And Mick Herron, CWA Gold Dagger Award-winning author of Dead Lion, says, a splendid tale of wartime skullduggery featuring both kinds of spooks. Perfect fireside reading. So there we are, A House of Ghosts by W.C. Ryan and The Stranger Diaries by Ellie Griffiths, and the 2 2 wonderful reads that will actually thrill you over the Christmas period, I hope, or at least till the end of next week.
I have been also watching some TV.
Oh yeah,
that's some time to myself. I've been watching a program on Sky One called The Heist.
Oh, you know.
Have you seen the trailers for this? This is
my sister's recommended that.
It is wonderful.
You've got to watch it.
It's a bit like, have you ever seen Hunted on Channel 4?
I have caught a little bit of Hunted.
Well, there's a new series of that coming up soon. I'll just explain the concept of that. Essentially what happens is a group of people they go on the run. Some of them are couples, some of them are on their own, and they are dumped somewhere in the UK, and they have to then go and hide from the authorities for 28 days. And they will use all the powers of the state are replicated, so they can use phone tapping, number plate recognition, CCTV, all of this stuff they can harness in order to find these people, and they have to stay hidden for 28 days and then get to an extraction point, and if they manage to get away they win a share of £100,000. depending on how many of them actually managed to escape.
Oh,
So you basically had to evade the authorities, and so you kind of got these two sides, this cat and mouse game going on. The heist is similar. Not going to say rip-off, but at the start of it, it's set. They set it. Well, all the people are from Thirsk in North Yorkshire, and they've set up this hilarious little police department called Yorkshire Police, which obviously doesn't exist, and Thirsk Detectives, which are in this basically.
Thirsk Detectives.
Yeah, they're in this basically this converted library. They're meant to look like a real police force, but they're really not. And they've basically pulled in old Met people and
Right.
retired police officers from around the country and dumped them all in this office. And one Sunday morning, this is all non-fiction, by the way. It's all true. It happens. It's like a documentary type thing.
And these are members of the public that are actually
members of the public.
yes, right.
They've set up on a Sunday morning. They organised a raid on a money van carrying £250,000 in cash. Now, this is all set up as part of the programme. The driver of the van knew that this was going to happen, and that bit was kind of set up. But they have to work out how to do the heist. They have a certain amount of time to do that. Then they have to carry it off, and then escape and hide and spend the money within a certain period of time. I think they've got a week or so. Today there was 10 of them. They all take 25 grand each, and they've got to hide it and somehow spend it. These are all marked notes as well, with marked serial numbers, and anything that they buy or spend, I think they get to keep. And the police are investigating. They're using CCTV and all the rest of the stuff, and the people end up getting caught or arrested. And if the police have enough evidence to charge them, if this were real life and were a real crime, then it's game up for them, and they have to give them the rest of the money back.
So it sounds like an incredibly elaborate apprentice thing.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Instead of Alan Sugar saying you're fired, you've got a copper saying you're nicked.
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, it's really well done, actually. And for example, people who go out and they think on day one, well, I've got to get rid of the money, got to get rid of it, and they go out and they go on massive shopping trips and buy £5,000 worth of stuff in £10 notes where the serial numbers are all sequential. And you think, well, yeah, you're going to get caught doing things like that. So you kind of think, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't have done that. But it's a very interesting idea.
Is it in no way encouraging people to actually, and showing people techniques on how to get away with crime, as opposed to The Apprentice, I suppose, which is encouraging people to make money and be successful?
It's showing you how not to do it. I'll put it that way. Yeah, it is interesting. What these people try doing and how they think they're going to get away with things. So that's what I've been watching. Also, in terms of true crime, something I did want to bring up. I was sent something a few days ago. I want to read out. It's an article from a national newspaper. I can't remember which one because I've cropped it too tightly. From 1853.
Oh yes, I vaguely remember that year.
Yeah, you were only 21, weren't you? I will explain the circumstances under which this article was sent to me once I've finished reading it.
I see. It's a mystery.
It says, Framlingham, Suffolk, Saturday. This usually quiet district of the county has been thrown into a painful state of excitement by the occurrence of a most horrible act of murder and suicide. The perpetrator of the dreadful crime was a Mr. William Goodwin, aged 45, who resided with his family in very comfortable circumstances in Dennington Road, near this town. The victim of his terrible crime being a favourite daughter, Eliza Goodwin, a pretty and interesting child not more than 4 years old. An inquest was held yesterday before Mr. Wood, the coroner, when the following facts were adduced. On Thursday morning, about 20 minutes to 8 o'clock, the passers-by were alarmed on seeing Mrs. Goodwin come out of her house and scream as if for help. A butcher named Dixon, imagining the place was on fire, rushed in, but finding nothing to confirm his belief, almost as quickly returned. The unfortunate woman was unable to speak, and pointing to the windows of a front sitting room and the side door, which was fastened, so intimated that something serious had taken place in the apartment. Dixon, with another man, then burst the door open, when a most awful scene presented itself. The little girl was discovered lying upon the carpet, but was quite dead, a fearful gash having been inflicted on her throat and on her face. Her clothing, for she had been dressed, and the floor round the body were covered with blood. A few feet from her, lying on his left side, and with a frightful cut in his throat, was seen Goodwin, who was also dressed. He was alive. His eyes were open, but he was unable to articulate a word. In the room was found a razor with which he had committed the dreadful act. Messrs Wilson and Jefferson, surgeons, were instantly called in, pre-police days of course, and proceeded to sew up the wound which the wretched man had inflicted upon himself, but of little service in saving his life, as he expired in the course of 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour. The death of the little girl was very speedy, as the carotid artery was completely divided, or carotid artery I think it is, was completely divided. The surgeons expressed their belief that Goodwin committed both acts and that he must have been deranged at the time. It appears that he had been subject to slight aberration of intellect at times, and that, no doubt, was brought about and hastened by the loss of his eldest son a day or so previously, the corpse of which he had only seen deposited in the coffin the evening before. The jury returned a verdict of wilful murder in the case of the child, and that the deceased William Goodwin committed self-destruction while in an unsound state of mind. He has left a family of 5 children. Now,
Wow.
I was sent this article on a genealogy website because William Goodwin was my great-great-great-grandfather. How's that for a discovery of the week?
Oh my God.
How's that?
That is well, tragically sad.
It is.
But also
That's something I didn't know until this week.
quite fascinating.
Yes, my great-great-great-grandfather killed his 4-year-old daughter and then himself. That's so. Yeah,
And through losing his mind to grief. I suppose.
through having lost his eldest son the day before,
Oh my God!
which was
such a
absolutely
sad tale.
extraordinary thing to have discovered.
Well,
Especially
yes.
considering my job. That was.
Who sent this to?
Well, it's a genealogy website I'm a member of. I've been doing
Oh,
a
I
bit
see.
of research on my family tree, and someone else who has a common ancestor of William Goodwin said, "Have you seen this bit of information about him?" There's a story in this national newspaper from 1853. So
Grief.
yeah, quite.
Is that your mum or dad's side of the family?
On my dad's side of the family, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's quite quite an extraordinary thing to, especially with my job and my what I do from day to day, to find out that I actually have a family connection directly descended from a killer.
Well, yes.
That's
God, I mean, that's
bit of a shock, that.
That's that's a real "who do you think you are," isn't it? I mean, you couldn't have expected that, but it's a very moving account of a terrible situation. I mean, one which we continues. In contemporary, you often hear terrible stories of people having, sort of deranged through for whatever reasons, carrying out terrible acts against themselves and those closest to them.
I mean, I still don't know what I think of it, to be honest with you. It's a
well.
obviously, I never knew the guy. He he died 130 years before I was born. But something that nobody in the family knew about either.
Yeah.
It's obviously been kept quite quiet. It's not the sort of thing that in those days was brought up very often.
No.
But yeah, quite a discovery to make, really, as a crime writer. To discover a real life link to a real life crime.
Well, I'm vaguely speechless.
Yeah, as was I.
Yes, I'm not surprised. Gosh,
So I
well,
thought, that one has to come up on the podcast.
Well, yes. Well, gosh, and it's extraordinary thing. And again, the archaic language. The story was reported in.
Well, I didn't want to tell you about that before the podcast. I thought I'd drop that on you.
Well, you did.
In the
You dropped it right
That
on
was
me.
genuinely the first you'd heard of that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I am. I'm on the floor with that. Really, it's such a desperately sad thing.
It is, yeah.
Well, I'm very sorry.
But interestingly enough, I also in that is kind of, I've been a member of this website for a while, but it's spurred me on to do a bit more family research, and on the other half of my dad's side of the family, if you like, we knew that a couple of generations back they'd come from London. Turns out before that we're actually from about 11 miles down the road. I've gone all the way back to 1610, over 400 years ago, and they don't seem to have left Stotfold in Bedfordshire. So
You are kidding.
In 400 years, we've moved 11 miles. So when I say I'm from Bedfordshire, I'm very much from Bedfordshire.
You're a Bedford boy, you are, yeah, my goodness me. Well, I've got nothing, but I have actually, I mean, certain things are thrown up in my past. I know that my great-grandfather was a copper on the beat in East London during Jack the Ripper times, and that's a family legend which has been proven to be the case. So he would have been around when all that was going on. So that's the nearest criminal criminal activity I've heard of. I'm sure there are many, many, many more.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, I've gone back to 1610. That's 10 greats grandfather. And there's lots of people who are spurred off from that, great uncles, and there's in the family tree, even getting back that far, it's opened up, so there's something like 400 or 500 people on it at the moment.
I mean,
when you've got all the branches coming off, so there's got to be some wrong uns amongst those, isn't there? 400 or 500 people, any cross section of society would be.
Families are funny. I mean, one part of my family from the East End, another part of the family are from South Wales, the Hopkins. Another side of the family are we're sort of related to the Duke of Northumberland, which is
that doesn't surprise me in the slightest,
my dear boy. And so it's families. Once you go back just 2 or 3 sort of generations, you're completely lost because
you've got hundreds of branches coming off them.
Well, for our children and grandchildren and what have you, they will be able to see and hear us in a way that we haven't got access to that.
No.
I mean, my great grandparents are still black and white photographs, and a very distant childhood, memory. I can remember my great grandmother sitting in the garden on a summer's day, dressed up. She was Queen Victoria. I mean, that's what she looked like in this sort of Edwardian stuff and what have you. And she was extraordinary and quite dominating. But she'd been one of Mari Lloyd's dancing girls, and she was in the theatre and doing all sorts of things. And I think she played fairy godmother at Drury Lane at one point. So that's probably where that sort of gene comes from. But when I knew her, she was this rather intimidating figure who sort of didn't really speak that much, and now she's just a black and white photograph. So you didn't really know these people in the way that the point I'm making again is that our grandchildren will actually be able to say, they'll be able to look at film of us and photographs of us and listen to our voices and go, my goodness me, that
rubbish podcasts.
Well, rubbish podcasts. I mean, the way that extraordinary Peter Jackson film of the First World War, where he added colour to all those black and white films, it brought such an immediacy to the horrific conflict, and you actually, it's amazing how black and white distances you, and also the speed. He slowed those films down to a more natural rhythm, so whatever, and suddenly it just sprang from the screen, and there they were. You could see the fear, the hopes, listen to the voice. Actually, not the actual voices, I know, but you could actually get a real feel for the horror of what was going on. And if your heart hadn't gone out to all those people who lost their lives and went through the First World War, the horrors of the First World War before, then you certainly did after seeing that film. Anyway, so gosh. So anyway, you went to Manchester this week. He said, desperately looking for light relief.
I did, yes. I was going to leave it at that, but yes, I did go to Manchester. Yes, I was there last week. That's why we didn't have another episode last week. But
did you have a nice time?
Yeah, lovely.
Yeah,
lovely.
Yes, okay, fair enough. He's not going to talk about that, I can see.
Well, no, I spoke at the Society of Authors thing. They invited me to go up there and to speak about independent publishing, and then I did, and it was all very good, all very, very jolly, to use a Dawesism.
It was a very, very jolly. What was I doing last week? I forgot. I was doing something. God, the weeks fly by. Certainly as we approach Christmas. The Christmas tree's up, and I hope your Christmas trees are up if you enjoy having a Christmas tree, that is, and the lights are up, and I'm sort of in full Christmas
I think mine's still up. I've got 2 cats and a toddler, and I've been in this room for the last half an hour, so I daren't go downstairs and see what's left of the Christmas tree.
Well, I've seen your Christmas tree, and it looks absolutely magnificent. But of course, you
it
don't
did
go for,
half an hour ago.
Unlike us, we go for the real thing, and you go for, I have to say, an excellent stand-in for the real thing.
Well, as I say, cats and toddlers, it's...
Yeah, that's what... Well, I think it's funny, as you grow up, I mean, you sort of lose contact a little bit as you sort of enter your 20s and get on with your own life, and Christmas is, coming back home if you're fortunate enough to have that, or whatever Christmas is. But the moment you have kids, it starts all over again, doesn't it?
He wrote his letter to Santa, yes, or rather, Mummy wrote the letter to Santa, and he kind of
forget to write my one. I make sure the kids get... Amy makes sure the kids get their letters off.
Well, no presents for you this year, then?
Probably not. Well, I'll probably just be, I don't know, there'll be mince pie by the fireplace, I should imagine.
As a kick in the teeth, you'll have to look forward to another year of doing this.
Yeah, well, do you know, it's coming up to nearly a year on this, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
People have been listening. Thank you very much, everyone who was listening to us bantering away. And we hope we're of some use to you. I mean, certainly...
And we hope you're still listening.
Yeah, we do. And I hope that the recommendations of the books and the authors that we like to talk about have been of some use. I mean, it's certainly a fascination for us and an education for me in particular. It's quite a privilege to actually get to talk as we have done to our many guests. You may be wondering why we haven't had a guest for the last couple of weeks. It's not through laziness or people just refusing to come on. We just
not just through those reasons.
Not just through those reasons, but we just suddenly thought, we'll sort of have a little chat amongst ourselves for 30 minutes and actually bring on a guest maybe once a month or whatever, or again listen to people that you'd like to hear. Mick Herron is one that's been very, very popular.
Yes.
And I was in Daunt's bookshop, the wonderful Daunt's bookshop in Marylebone High Street. If you don't know it, go. It's one of the most beautiful bookshops in the world. Absolutely marvellous. And Mick Herron has brought out a little novella called The Drop, which is absolutely terrific, especially if you like Mick Herron's work. People say, in the manner of John le Carré, and I think he's in the same field, but has his own unique voice, and I love them both. And it's quite interesting that both John le Carré's latest book and Mick Herron's book, The Drop, are set in Marylebone themselves. In fact, the opening of The Drop, the opening scene is set in my favourite London restaurant, pretty much, which is Fisher's in Marylebone High Street. A delicious chicken, a scallop, a mashed potato, and gravy. I recommend it. It's absolutely wonderful.
Oh, we're over 30 minutes now, so we can stop now.
Oh, really? Oh, well, okay. I was just about to say this before. He's got the hook out, ladies and gentlemen. It's turning into the Gong Show.
We only need to fill 30 minutes. That's all we need to do. We can stop now.
Well, I just was going to say that Marylebone is quite interesting because I've got to know that part of London very well over the last couple of years. And one thing I didn't know, and one of the reasons le Carré and Mick Herron set their books there, is because it was well known as a place where the British intelligence services had their safe houses, where they would keep spies, they would brief spies, they would carry out, obviously, covert operations. So, yes, it's got that particular atmosphere, that part between Bond Street, Marylebone High Street, going up to Great Portland Street and Harley Street. All those houses, every flat, and whenever I'm walking along, I think, I wonder if that was an MI5 or MI6 house. Well, that looks, because there are lots of, fascinating, beautiful part of town. But anyway, that's one of the reasons they set their novels there. So I recommend The Drop. It's a quick read and a great read. And if you haven't read any of Mick Herron's works, please get that. Is it a crime? We've had this conversation before. It's espionage, it's spies, there's deaths, whatever. I mean, there are different crimes, and it is a broad church here on Partners in Crime, and we hope you don't mind that. Anyway, that's it. Marylebone, Mick Herron, thank you very much.
You finished now?
Yeah, it's 32 minutes, 49, 52 seconds.
Yeah, we don't get overtime.
Oh.
Partners in Crime was presented by Adam Croft and Robert Dawes and produced by Adam Croft. The theme tune was by the Caesareans. The Partners in Crime logo and imagery were designed by Stuart Beisch. Partners in Crime is sponsored by Kobo, your favourite local bookshop, perfected.